poet Rumi once said, "Run from what's comfortable, forget safety, live where you fear to live." This is the Producers Lounge Podcast, the best podcast online for tips and tricks on producing great film, television, and web content. Welcome back for Season 3, Episode 14, our 3B season premiere, hosted and produced by GreaterAndGrander.com. On this week's episode, we're chatting with Bayan Joonam, who has produced documentaries, web content, and high-profile prestige TV series including Magic City, An American Fantasy, SoulPancake for Oprah Winfrey, and On the Run Tour with Beyonce and Jay-Z. We discuss Hollywood history, making skateboarder music videos, cross-country photography, working at the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C., and being in the room where it happens. We also discuss his rise in the documentary landscape and overcoming hardships such as growing up with dyslexia. Here now is my conversation with Bayan Joonam. I binged it. That was a wild show.
It was. Just making it, you can imagine, it was, only the best made it on screen, but some of the outtakes are pretty crazy, for sure.
Well, I was mentioning earlier, my favorite part is when Junior and you're asking him, like, do you remember the name of that uncle? And he's like, nope, don't remember.
We don't talk about that uncle.
We don't talk about that uncle.
Yeah. Well, the funny part about that, too, is like, the joke I would make was that sometimes on the set you would have this, not conflict, but just like this budding of what I would consider to be LA nice, which is very like, it's Hollywood nice, it's surface level nice, and like then there's Southern nice, which is also surface level very nice, but like there's this thing that like, oh, we just don't talk about that. And that was like a good example of Hollywood nice meeting Southern nice. They're just like, we don't talk about that. And like, the producers in us, it's just like, well, this is mentioned in multiple publications. Like this is pretty common knowledge. He's just like, well, did anybody else talk about it? Or, it's just like, nope.
So what are you doing on the Radford lot these days? What keeps you busy?
Keeping the dream alive is the answer to both of those questions. Well, I feel like the Radford lot was a strategic choice for us so that we can try to be part of like rewriting whatever this next chapter of Hollywood and especially the nonfiction world looks like. I think mostly the story is just doom and gloom about how traditional Hollywood is dying, and maybe that's true to a certain extent. But the choice to come to Radford and set up here was almost like an invitation for a workforce that feels very downtrodden, and to remember this more romantic idea of what our profession is all about. And so the idea of like being on a lot, especially as a documentary company, wasn't traditional, but we just wanted it to be a place where we could plant our flag in the sand and tell people this is what we're about. It's that traditional idea of great storytelling, great entertainment finds an audience, even if it's not the easiest time to do so. And what a great like historical place. Like for those who don't know, Radford was home to, and please feel free to eat the French fries. It's gonna get some crunches in the middle of this.
That's fine. Radford is like where Gilligan's Island and all of those famous CBS shows were shot, and like it's such an amazing but also effective and efficient place to like set up shop too.
I think multiple iterations of Hollywood have been invented here. When you go even further back than CBS, it was the home of Mack Sennett, who found this spot, which was just when it was all orange groves.
Oh, wow. And
decided to put a studio, and this was right around the time where we were transitioning from sight and sound to them being like the talkies, as they called it. So you have like, I just think a history of innovation here, which as the more I learn about like Mack Sennett and the history of this lot, the more I feel like it's a great home for us who are trying to carry that same spirit into our work.
Nice. Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Los Angeles, but we moved very quickly. So I lived in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago for a few years after we moved from LA, and then I lived in Haifa, Israel for 10 years, from when I was 7 to about 17. And then I moved back to Los Angeles. Well, I moved to Idyllwild, California, where there was a fantastic art school called Idyllwild Arts Academy. And I credit that place as probably the reason why I'm sitting here today. Had great teachers, we had a sound stage and all of like the type of equipment that you only dream of as a high school kid to play with. So we got to learn how to use like steady cams and cranes and
Oh, wow.
at Final Cut stations,
Yeah.
and great teachers who could kind of walk us through how to do it. And
Yeah.
the program was such where you would have to like be a different role for each other's film. So I mean, from doing sound to producing, I got to do all of it. And that's, that was where I found my first love, which was cinematography.
Oh, really?
As soon as I started, I was really into photography, and I was a skateboard kid in Israel. Because in Israel, it's kind of like LA, where you're either a surf rat or a skate rat, and that was like, you could divide the youth into one of those two categories. So I was on the skateboarding side.
Yeah.
And that was when I first started picking up cameras and like documenting our sort of, just childhood stupid shit you do as a teenager.
In Israel specifically. That's
in
where
Israel, yeah.
Was there a specific moment in Israel where you're like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
I don't know if there was a moment. I can remember a few moments that having a camera in my hand felt right. One of them was that when I was around 14 years old, my bus stop was bombed. And it was during, it was actually an American holiday. So we got off school because I went to an American school, like an international school, and we got American holidays off.
Yeah.
But so on those holidays, we would typically go skateboarding.
Yeah.
And my friend and I were coming back from a session, and it was just, I just remember there was like traffic, like backed up all the way to the Marquez, which is like the market. And as we were weaving through the cars, like it became clearer and clearer, like something happened at the top of my block. And like, I can just remember sort of like coming closer to this site that was, it was a brutal site.
Yeah.
And we just sat at the curb and I just started filming because it felt like the right thing to do. And some of those images I still like recall because it was the place that I would go to every morning for a long time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it had been transformed by this one action. And I just felt like documenting that was probably a moment that changed the trajectory of my career from, just filming or skate hooligan type of stuff to then being like, I can do something more important with this camera and I can capture these moments that felt consequential. So, but it was my mom who really recognized that I was totally happy to sit in front of the computer using like Adobe Premiere version 1 at the time, or like, version 2, like for like 12 hours at a time, just obsessively trying to land, the skateboard trick, the landing with the music beat and things like that. And then she was like, maybe this is the right path. So she found Idyllwild Arts, and luckily they needed more international students. And as soon as I got there, I did the admissions interview, and they were like, "Oh my God, your English is so good." It's like, thank you. I've been speaking.
You speak so well.
Yeah, it was that, and but that was kind of like the beginning of the rest of my life, was like just spending all of my time at that point around filmmaking and cameras.
Wow, that's incredible. I do know a lot of other people who I have one close friend, and she also grew up in Israel, just outside of Tel Aviv. And because of her experience growing up as she puts it, a child of war, it very much influenced her desire to tell stories. So I completely understand where you're coming from with that. And also, Idyllwild. Oh, can I tell you something that I relate to? Like, I was in the exact same boat when I was like 17. I got my hands on Final Cut 2. And I was doing all of these rap music videos for my friends who lived south of the 95 freeway. So it was also like trying to like put something together, sitting in front of a computer hours at a time. Like it really is, like, to have all of those toys to play with, especially in editing, is so fun, right?
Oh my God. I mean, I think there was almost like a one-to-one transfer of hours spent playing video games to then like, Age of Empires and like Warcraft and stuff to then being like, oh, I can build similarly, I can kind of build these worlds inside of the edit
Yeah.
software. And if I just have enough patience and enough creativity for doing that, then, anything's really possible. And yeah, I mean, I remember like the software was expensive at the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's nothing like today, $40 a month, whatever, and you're good to go. But it was like, I think,
DaVinci Resolve, which you can download for free.
yeah, exactly. Like it was Final Cut at that time was like, $2,500, I think, something like that. And
I don't think it was that much, but
it was somewhere in the thousands. It definitely was,
Mhm.
because I was trying to get my parents to buy me this software in the beginning, and they were like, "Yeah, maybe like we'll wait a little bit, see if this is a real interest or a fad." And that was when I found the Pirate Bay, and that was like the LimeWire days back in the day, and so it's not probably the most above board thing, but I don't know if I would really be a filmmaker without the ability to like pirate this software and, pray that I wasn't downloading a virus onto my parents, or computer room system. And, but yeah, I think like there is this sort of like you get into this world of like, it's not that technical, but I always felt like all of the technical skills I had learned from gaming, transferred into this world of editing. But most of all, just like the obsession, the obsession with creating something where there was nothing was always it. Because at a certain point, we'd filmed so many hours of ourselves doing these tricks that someone had to put something together.
Yeah.
And we had all gotten word, me and my group of friends at the same time, that we were going to be leaving Israel. So we were like, it sort of became the rally project for us to remember our time together was in making this video. But yeah, I think like your friend, being a child of war, I just call it growing up in a war zone. I don't think there's any better preparation for the film industry than growing up in a war zone, which is to say that like you learn a certain level of resilience mentally, that bad things happen and what are you going to do with that? When I tell you the story about what happened to my bus stop, it wasn't a situation that for me was radicalizing. It was almost like the opposite, where I wanted to then be a person who could bridge divides. I was intensely curious about like what led up to this moment.
Right.
And that's still like the through line of all of my work, whether it is looking at extremist movements and how they gain steam in the US. It's never to me about trying to prove anybody wrong in their beliefs or reinforce anybody's belief. It's just understanding that you or I very easily, if we grew up in a different zip code with a different community around us, can find ourselves in a similar situation. And documentary is the medium that I think builds that bridge.
Yeah. And so you mentioned at Idyllwild, you found your first love there to be cinematography.
Yeah.
And it cemented your love for filmmaking. What? So I assume you're at Idyllwild for all 4 years, or?
Only the last 2 years, junior and senior year of high school.
Oh, got it. And then, so with that being said, wait a minute, your high school had a Steadicam and a crane?
Yeah.
USC didn't even have a Steadicam and a crane.
I know, so you can imagine how disappointing college was.
And then for college, you went to Ithaca.
I graduated from Ithaca, yeah. I mean, my college story, I feel like, is as complicated as my growing up story, but originally I went to Brookings Institute of Photography, which is like a now defunct trade school, basically.
But good if you're wanting to be a cinematographer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was also, they had a certain level of freedom, and my mindset at the time was go to the school that would accept my Idyllwild Arts credits into their program, because like, it was so advanced that I didn't feel like I wanted to go through all the 101 classes. Brookings, I lasted there for about a year. It just wasn't the right program for me. And then I went to NYU for about a semester. But but frankly, it was very expensive, and they wouldn't let us touch cameras, which was, I mean, we could like use a Bolex. I think that was like what we had access to, which was fun for a little bit. Like I like shooting film, but it was a lot of theory and not a lot of practice. So, but in that gap, I had won a contest for National Geographic because I had driven across the country and I was just taking landscape photos. And so the prize for this magazine that was like a student-run subsidiary of National Geographic was you could go anywhere in the world on assignment, and I chose New Zealand. So
Good choice.
yeah,
Was this before or after Lord of the Rings, out of curiosity?
this was after.
Got it.
This was after. So
Okay.
you know, that was like the apex of beautiful landscapes. And so I went to University of Auckland for while I was doing that assignment, and that was, I think, really informative because I think it shaped my understanding of beauty in a way that was less about beautifully composed landscape images and more thinking about how places like New Zealand had this history of people just like me come from the outside and frame a pretty picture and think that, you know, that's a representation of this place, when they were very quick to sort of show me all of these, you know, like indigenous history and what is the indigenous artwork and how do you in your work pay tribute to that, and not just act like you're sort of, you know, you just fell out of nowhere to like define what this place is. So
Right.
that was, I think, a great education, my favorite part. And then after New Zealand, I ended up at Ithaca with their B.F.A program, film, photography, visual arts, and a minor in art history. Just sort of like allowed me to do all the things that I love to do and touch all of the cameras I wanted. That was really the promise that they made me when I decided to join.
Well, that's good, because I know USC also has a similar program where you can't touch cameras for the first 2 years, unless you have one on your own, which we all do because of our iPhones.
Yeah, now we do, yeah. I didn't know seasonal depression was real until I went to Ithaca.
Yeah.
But to that point, I think that when I look around, some of the most talented craftspeople who are working today came from Ithaca.
Okay.
Like, still so many of the people I met there are out here, like some of the best DPs, production designers, ACs. And I mean, we'd be remiss to not mention the probably most famous alumni being Bob Iger came from Ithaca. So it's like, you know, tradition.
You don't want to piss off Bob Iger.
No, I mean, I hope to meet him one day. Maybe I'll get the chance to piss him off, but that would be a blessing.
So then you graduate Ithaca. What's your next move?
I had an attitude at the time where I would take any job that paid more than $100 a day, $100 or more a day.
Yeah.
And I was just applying for everything from like Mandy's, which I don't even know if Mandy's is still around, Craigslist, Mandy.com, yeah. And the math I did in my head was if I can make about $100 a day, then I can pay off my student loans and I can like live, I can, you know, share my rent with my roommates at the time. So that was the attitude I had, and I started
And that was in New York or LA?
I was in New York at the time, and I was coming to DC a lot where my parents lived for work, because DC actually, I mean, they had a great labor market there. I think it was a little bit less competitive, excuse me, it was a little bit less competitive than New York, because I think what they lack in DC is like creatives who come there. Like they have great news organizations, and but you know, not a lot of folks who are coming with a certain creative panache. And so I was introduced to a temp agency that just like, you know, day rate stuff to camera operate. And then I would do like night shifts doing rigging for conferences because they would pay time and a half. So I worked my way up from being like an L2 in the lighting department to being a lighting designer, because one day I guess the lighting designer didn't show up, And so I was all of a sudden like in charge of these like 500, 700 light configurations, and I became good at like the schematics and how to wire all of it together and do the design. So around that time, the temp agency put me in touch with the Brookings institution, which is a think tank in DC. They wanted to start a YouTube channel. And so I kind of became like the resident young person that, by virtue of my age, understood YouTube. And around that time, my friends and I were starting a company called Scheme Engine, which is still around today, produced Magic City with them. And they had been offered a joint venture by Rock Nation to help build Life and Times, which was the .com era like version of YouTube for Jay-Z and his different brand partnerships and artist relations. So
can I ask, because I feel like these kind of stories, the timeline is always important. You'll hear somebody talking about like, I worked as an L2, I worked as a lighting designer, and then 2 weeks later. But how long were you really like kind of paying your dues doing the temp agency and the lighting until you finally got hired by the Brookings Institute?
it was about 2 years of doing that. And the Scheme Engine stuff was all sort of happening as soon as I graduated, because we were just a group of like kids who met at NYU and had a few opportunities and it wasn't making any money. I think that's the other side. Like I was making money in DC temping so that I could afford to go to New York and work on these much more exciting projects. Because they would pay like, not very much. So about 2 years.
80 hours in a week.
Yeah, I'd spend about 3 or 4 days in DC, and then I'd spend the rest of the time in New York, and I'd take the bus back and forth, from Bethesda to Grand Central, and that was it. But yeah, 80 hours was a light week at that point, because like, keep in mind, like this was the beginning of the Canon Mark II era, where like the term predator began.
Yeah.
And so the expectation wasn't just that you're going to shoot. It was like, you're going to put it all together, you're going to shoot it, and you're going to edit it in like a week. So, it was like, that was just what it felt like it took to get opportunities and to build momentum around it. So it all was sort of happening at the same time. And it wasn't a straight line for sure, but it was sort of like, the two worlds to me were very different.
Yeah.
And even with the Brookings stuff, I was working at Brookings a couple days a week, and I'd come to New York to do the more exciting stuff. And yeah.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from the Brookings Institute portion?
The Brookings side.
Yeah. Because I'm still subscribed to the Brookings YouTube channel. Actually.
Wow.
I might have subscribed when you started.
Shit. Wow. That's, yeah. I think efficiency, I learned about, one is that like, am I allowed to swear? Is that
Say whatever the fuck you want.
Cool. Fuck the orthodoxy. Like I had inherited a system that was what felt like decades old. And the first thing that I had to do when starting a YouTube channel was figure out like, how do we do this faster so we can do weekly content, which was sort of like unheard of at that organization at the time. Like they, especially for video, like they just didn't have the infrastructure, technologically speaking. Now, labor-wise, they definitely did. So it was about, how do we get these interviews that we're shooting in the studio downstairs to the editorial room on the third floor as fast as possible. And so I think my job there, having the benefit of no bad habits, was just asking why. Like, why does it take so long to do it? Why do we need to put things through this process before getting the transcript done? And I think that frustrated a lot of people in the beginning, but slowly I was able to develop trust, because whenever anybody would tell me no, I felt like that became a mandate to prove that it is possible.
Yeah.
And that I still have today. You could ask my staff, like, hate being told that something's not possible. Like, there's nothing more motivating to me than hearing those words. Because, like, usually the thing is, I'm like, well, I will stay here tonight and do it just to show that it is possible.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that's maybe a lesson that came from Brookings. I never really thought about it, but it came from that period of time where I was like, no, we can, I will do it myself if I have to. And then once you do that, like, it can rub people the wrong way, but ultimately, if you're right, that's what counts.
And did it pay off? Or did it just piss people off?
I mean, I was able to, I think, have a lot of, I was able to have a lot more impact on that organization than I think anybody else my age was able to do. Like, I had the ear of the editor-in-chief. I had the ear of a few of the decision makers when they saw how hard I was willing to go to do what ultimately they had asked us to do. And I think, like, organizations don't want to change, you know, like, they don't, there's a like muscle within, especially ones like that are going to push back against, you know, people like me who are just all about, like, finding better ways of doing things. And sometimes it's wrong, but I feel like that was the launching point for me to then go into a company like SoulPancake, which was demanding not just weekly content but daily content, and then to look at the landscape of Hollywood at the time and say, well, what do we need to, what beliefs do we need to do away with to make this possible?
Right.
And so that was, I think, why I became head of production there at like 26. Wow. Because I don't think we would have been able to do it if I had more bad habits, so to speak.
So just to confirm the timeline, you graduate Ithaca at 22. You're doing 2 years of lighting and what have you until you land at Brookings. That's 24. And then by 26, you're head of production at SoulPancake.
Yeah, give or take a year. I think I was 21 when I graduated.
Oh, okay. Still very impressive.
I don't know. I'm trying to think about it now when it comes to, because I was born in September, you know, so that's always like a weird cutoff month of these things. But yeah, it was something like that. And then Scheme Engine started 2012. So it was that same year that I graduated. And yeah, then 2 years back and forth between the two. Yeah, so 25, 26.
And I just wanted to double check my notes. Because you have a lot. Like, you've done a lot within a very short amount of time. SoulPancake, Brookings, Vice. I assume the JCC stuff was with
Scheme Engine.
My apologies.
Yeah, that was like the 2012. I'm sorry. Yeah, like around that 2 or 3 years leading up to SoulPancake was building that.
How did all of this come about in such a short period of time? What is your secret to success?
There really is no secret. Like, I just don't think that, I don't subscribe to the idea that there's like any magic silver bullet that gets you opportunities. I think it was people recognize that I would go above and beyond, because this wasn't just a job to me, and it never was just a job. This is a calling. It's purpose. And I think when you treat your career like that, that you attract like-minded people, and people rely on you. And I think, you know, the thing I'm most proud of, other than, you know, the work itself, is just being somebody that my peers rely on, someone that they trust to get the job done at whatever cost. And I think, you know, I think that's something that, especially when you're young, if you choose to go into a profession like this one, there has to be something more than just financial gain that you're looking for. There has to be a purpose, a mission that you are out to prove, because that's what attracts people to you. is not just, showing up on time and clocking out when your hours are up. I think about that famous Kobe Bryant line where he talks about even just like an hour showing up before practice over time. If you repeat it over and over, you're so far ahead of the competition after a year, 2 years, that it becomes really hard to catch up. And I think I had people who recognized that drive and gave me a chance, and I wouldn't quit until I felt like I had proven that it was a good decision to do that. There were mistakes along the way, like a lot of mistakes. I think I still make mistakes all the time, I feel like. But
well, now I got to ask you, what was your biggest mistake at that period in time that you learned the most from? Hey everyone, quick break here. If you listen to the Producers Lounge podcast, you know I'm obsessed with how stories get made and who gets to make them. That's why I wrote Threads of Imagination, a book about collaborative storytelling and the art of building worlds together. Published by DSTL Arts nonprofit, which supports young BIPOC artists, the book pulls from my own personal history and even from my family history and the tradition of itinerant tribes telling stories around the campfire. Threads of Imagination is a guide to collaborative storytelling and how ideas grow, evolve, and become something bigger when people create together. Whether you're a filmmaker, writer, artist, or just someone who loves the process behind good stories, this book gives you practical tools, creative prompts, and real-world insights to elevate your craft. That's right, Threads of Imagination is full of exercises, behind-the-scenes lessons, and inspiration to help you create with purpose and community. If you're looking to jumpstart your next project or sharpen your storytelling instincts, this is the place to go. You can find Threads of Imagination wherever books are sold online. All right, back to the Producers Lounge podcast.
Producing is very difficult sometimes because you put deadlines and that desire to get things done and have them perfect. And oftentimes that can come at the cost of positive, just like good vibes.
Yeah.
And I think that something that I wish that I had spent a little more time on, because like my whole life, all I've ever thought about is filmmaking and the technical side of that. So I wish I had taken a little bit more like management courses. I wish that I had spent more time thinking about that aspect of it, because I just had to learn very much on the go. It was just about the product itself, and like, is it ready? Is it not ready? So I think I had to learn how to give notes.
Yeah.
Like, what is the right way of doing it so that you achieve the outcome that you're after?
Yeah.
And I think, especially when we're talking about getting into the SoulPancake chapter, I think I was just very overwhelmed by the amount of content that all of a sudden we needed to produce. It was one every day, Monday to Friday, sometimes Saturdays.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I went from being like once a week in that system to then being like, we have 25 shows on my slate, 5 that are in development, 5 that are in pre-production, 5 in production, 5 in post, 5 releasing. So I think that, I just felt like I was trying to be as efficient as possible, and sometimes that came off as abrupt. And I also think, growing up in Israel did me no favors. Is just a little bit of a cultural difference there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I guess, like, is it a mistake, or is it just something you have to learn along the way? And I think everybody has their own version of that, of just saying, okay, like, here was a challenge, here's an obstacle for me to overcome. And I had great mentors. I had great examples of people who maybe at the time I thought were too soft. And now I just sort of like, now that I'm in a position where I don't necessarily report up to anybody, I think about it a lot, and I think about, there is a cost that makes it not worth it.
Yeah.
And so walking that line, where that line is important to establish early on.
Yeah. I can speak from my own experience. I've worked at quite a few production companies where it was not fun to come into work, because that executive or that principal of that company was definitely of that mindset, and I wish they had taken more management courses. So yeah.
That's, I think maybe in film school, that's something to consider as part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Because, especially if you're seeking to be a department head, like as a DP, you're a manager. Yeah, you're creative, but also you have two departments who report directly to you. So it takes a lot of management skill to navigate that. Same if you're directing. Like, I think what's crazy is some of the best directors might not even be that technically savvy. They're just excellent at motivating people to to show up and bring all of their skill and their talent the to the project. So, I I think about those kind of things a lot now, and I'm lucky because most of the people who I work with now, I've worked with for like almost 10 or more years. They know who I am. Like, they know where my heart's at, and I think that's also important, is don't throw away relationships so quickly, because like those are the people who are able to translate your ideas and just skip a lot of the miscommunications that can happen when you're first starting a relationship with another team member or craftsperson.
Yeah. So speaking of SoulPancake and the SoulPancake chapter, how did that come about?
Shabnam, my cousin, was just starting with SoulPancake as they were writing a book. And, Rainn had the idea to be a production company, but they weren't really set up for that at the time. So when Rainn was touring the book, like the book launch, he went on Oprah's book club show. It's called Super Soul Sunday. And Oprah loved SoulPancake, the concept, so much that she was like, I'm starting this network, and I would love to see what this looks like in video. Like, what is the video adaptation of this book? So that was when Shabnam, who knew what I was doing at Brookings and over at Rock Nation, was like, we should call my cousin. He's pretty good at this and knows how to make content, efficiently.
Right.
So in the beginning, we were just doing the first season of SoulPancake on OWN, where the concept was to take things out of the book, these activities, to connect people, strangers, and put them in public places like Westwood or, Hollywood and Highland. And that first season did so well. That block, the Super Soul Sunday block that it was a part of, won an Emmy. And so we were immediately greenlit for a second season. And right around this time, what's also happening is Google acquires YouTube, and they launch this partner program. It was like the premium partnership program, where they selected a handful of companies to fund and start YouTube channels.
Yeah, and I remember the Vlogbrothers started SciShow through that account.
Yep, exactly. So ironically, what actually ends up happening is that Life and Times in New York gets one of those partnerships, and SoulPancake also gets one of the partnerships.
Oh.
So I had a choice at that time, and I chose to stick with SoulPancake and join them as a partner and head of production in SoulPancake Productions, which we officially launch in that year. And the reason is because I just felt aligned with the mission of SoulPancake. Like, I thought the idea of creating conversations that go deeper than you could typically find on the internet, I just aligned with that. Right. I thought it was worthwhile to do. And so I went from being like the producer, DP, and colorist of this series that we were doing for OWN to then being the head of production for a company that would be distributing daily YouTube.
That's a huge shift.
It was a big shift. And it was like, the executive team at SoulPancake were all exceptionally talented and creative, but they weren't filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
They came from various disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So I always felt that my contribution to the team was translating that sort of executive vision
Mm-hmm.
into practical filmmaking terms and
Right.
programming that could be produced at the scale that we needed to produce it.
Right. And so eventually SoulPancake got acquired by Participant.
Yes.
How did that process feel, I guess? Because I've seen a lot of companies where they get acquired and then all of a sudden, like 3 months later, everybody's fired.
Yeah. Well, here's what's important and the not romanticized version of it,
Mm-hmm.
which is that like we were struggling
Mm.
in the year leading up to the acquisition.
Oh.
We were actually looking for like a Series B investment,
I
you
see.
know,
I see.
and that's when the participant conversation started as being something bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that I always keep in the back of my mind, you know, launching a company this year and even in the, you know, more project-based successes,
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes you need to get to that place where you're like
Mm-hmm.
running on fumes or you're just running on passion
Yeah.
to have a breakthrough. Like
Yeah.
breakthroughs don't happen when you're comfortable.
Oh.
They happen when you are like back against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make some big moves.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, the not romantic version, but the true version is that like
Mm-hmm.
we needed something to happen. And it was in that time that also I would say that some of our best shows were being developed and put out there.
Right. Right.
Because again, we all knew like we had to rally
Yeah.
to make this thing that we loved so much survive.
Right. Right.
And so Participant felt like it was, they felt like our older, more mature sibling.
Mm.
You know, they were like doing these like very premium long form documentaries that had a similar mission
Yeah.
to us. And we had done some work with Participant and their TV network Pivot in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just felt like the audience that we had built, which was around 10 million at the time across the platforms,
Mm-hmm.
could be a really great integration
Right.
with the long form
Yeah.
stuff that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a builder.
Yeah.
You know, like I find that especially around that time, I felt really great about what we had done in the digital space,
Mm-hmm.
but I was ready to start making
Yeah.
TV and film.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the digital guy
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the rest of my career.
Yeah.
And so even though it was a very comfortable situation
Mm-hmm.
with Participant, I just felt like I wanted something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot of really great lessons from Diane Wireman,
Mm-hmm.
the legendary doc producer who,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I just sat in enough meetings silently, you know, listening to them assess projects. And
Yeah.
I was like, I can do this. Like,
Yeah.
I can be on the other side of this conversation since I've been on the buyer side now for however many years. I could kind of apply that knowledge I learned from the other side of the table to selling shows.
Yeah. And with all that in mind, you are also a talented writer as well. Were you writing through this entire period, or did that start later? How did that come about?
You know, to be honest with you, I'm dyslexic, so
Oh wow.
I have always found writing very challenging. Um, so, but I never, like, growing up, like, nobody ever gave me, like, special accommodation for that. So I just had to work really hard to develop a style of writing that felt authentic and honest to me.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, there's something I always say with content or like filmmaking and writing is like people don't necessarily fall in love with perfection.
Yeah.
They fall more in love with imperfection. Like all of those little weird, unique aspects of how you might turn a phrase is actually the thing that makes people interested and interesting. But docs, I think, nonfiction is mostly about structure. Ordering sound bites in such a way that can allow like intrigue and curiosity to unfold. So I think that having a unique written take is enough to get you in the door a lot of the times. And then the real magic of it happens in the edit.
Right.
And when you're putting together a paper cut, you know, when you have 60 hours of material, it could be anything.
Yeah.
So I just feel like through the process of having to give notes and assess material on such a regular basis, I credit like YouTube with refining a certain sense of like pacing, a certain sense of act structure that appeals to audiences today. So when you look at like the pacing of a project like Magic City, I think that it moves a little bit different than a lot of shows.
Right.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. We had an incredible team, you know, behind the camera, behind the keys. But again, it's that internal clock that in my mind, like I spent 5 years looking at retention data and YouTube is so granular about it.
Yeah.
So I was just constantly asking questions like, why did the audience stop watching here? What needs to happen to, you know, get a retention graph to bounce back?
Right.
Things like that. And I think that I still use that in the work that we do today.
Right. And the work that you're doing today is your Laugh, Cry, Wow. And how did Laugh, Cry, Wow come about?
Yeah. So Laugh, Cry, Wow, the name speaks to just my philosophy of filmmaking. I think that these are universal emotions that are oftentimes involuntary. You don't think about laughing, you don't think about crying, you don't think about surprise, but when you experience them, they disarm the audience to be able to enjoy something or accept maybe a deeper message that's embedded within the work. So I look at Laugh, Cry, Wow as just the starting point for any engaging format, film, television, to be successful. The company started during Magic City when I met Jamie Gertz, who's my co-founder. And I think that we found over many late nights in Video Village that we shared that sensibility about what does it really take to break out of sort of okay, good into great.
Yeah.
So, you know, our partnership began there, and as we continued editing the project, I think I just became somebody that she felt she could rely on to provide notes and make sure that those were being implemented, and that I carried that similar standard of excellence in everything that we did. So after Magic City, we just thought that we wanted to just keep it going, you know, and make more stuff, more nonfiction, and see where it takes us. You know, there's not really like a master plan at play, other than just in everything we do, trying to reach that standard of excellence, and knowing that that's what separates most people from being successful in this business.
Got it. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions about terms that most people outside of Hollywood don't really understand. Most people in film school don't even understand it. But as far as a company principal, would you say that you're the company, one of the company principals for Laugh, Cry, Wow, or the company principal, or how would you define your role?
I mean, I've heard this term. Yeah. So, like, you know, because when I was at SoulPancake and we were acquired, they would like be like, "This is one of the principals," and I was like, "What is it? Is there like a?" I guess I'd go by a number of names, but I feel like, there's partners, there's principals, there's founders, I don't know what the distinction between these things are necessarily.
So I've heard principal almost exclusively used in the entertainment context, which is just this person is the person in charge, you know?
Yeah.
When I was at Urban Entertainment, it was run by a couple of guys, Damon Lee and Michael Jenkinson. Damon was the principal and Michael Jenkinson was the co-founder, because while Damon was the creative person behind it, Michael was more the money man who got the financing from production companies, independent financiers in Canada, to basically make it happen. So,
got it.
Yeah.
Well, then by that definition, sure. I've never been a fan of authority, so I'm going to just say, like, I'm the showrunner. You know,
okay.
Like, I think about our company like I think about a show. And I think that's part of when I thought about the structure of our company and trying to make something that was more efficient than what I had seen out there, was being like, if you don't have a role on a show, I don't need you at the company. Because I think there's two sides to that I found being really important. One is just from a practical level. When you run a show, it's like running a startup every time. You're building a new team around it, all that. I just got tired of the idea that every time I would have a show, I'd need to crew up and it'd be a different cast of characters. And the first 3-4 months is just spent kind of getting to know you and figuring out, like, based on that 1 hour interview that we did, are you actually, you know, up to the task here? So I was like, let's skip that part. And that efficiency will ultimately be transferred to the buyer and in the quality of our product, because we're not spending 3 months getting the show off the ground. Like, my post manager is our post supervisor on all of our projects. My head of production now, Blue, who's also 26, by the way, and incredible, has been with me for 5-6 years. She is the production manager on all of our shoots. So you just see that level of efficiency get transferred into the projects. Second, I think that on the team side, nobody got into this business to send emails. Like, it's respecting the creative spirit that exists within everybody in our team to not just say, okay, you're going to manage this slate and make sure that everybody's on track. But you are going to see your fingerprints on this project. You will be part of the creative success of this project. And so I think that's where you end up with this sort of like symbiotic relationship between a company that, to me, looks like a show, is staffed like a show, and a team that's motivated to bring all of themselves to these projects because they are not just being treated like, you know, managers, but creators. So
they have some authentic skin in the game.
Exactly. And that's ultimately what we all want. You know, when you take a job out of, whether it's necessity or by virtue of, you know, wanting something more stable, I just found that people get burned out a lot less when they have that fingerprint that they can see in the project. Because I mean, I'm sure you've worked at companies where, you know, you're not even credited on the project. And that to me is not very rewarding, you know. So I think for us, it's about bringing some of that reward back to the office setting and not having, you know, all of these superfluous management positions. So let's just focus in, okay, you are able to put your fingerprint on these projects. That's what we offer. Along with the, you know, the more romantic idea of what working on a lot entails. Like, it's my favorite thing when our staff brings like their parents or their partners or their kids.
That's great.
To the lot to just, you know, walk around. And you know, there's a Fox movie that's being filmed in the that stage over there, and they built a 100-foot fish that, you know, you can, it's so bizarre. But it's like, that's the fun of it. You can just walk around, and whether it's the history or what's happening right now, you feel like you're part of something that maybe it's a little nostalgic, but like I believe it's going to come back, and I believe that, like, you just have to think about it differently. So
people in the entertainment industry always talk about like 5-year plans. You know, what is your dream for where Laugh Cry Wow will be in 5 years?
Well, I've seen a lot of 5-year plans.
They usually don't pan out.
I think one of the things is that, like, when you have run a successful startup, you know, and had a successful exit, everybody like sends you their 5-year plan as if like you have some crystal ball that can tell, you know, the difference between. Here's the main thing that I feel like is important if I were to be starting as a young person today, which is, I've seen so many 5-year plans that's like, we're going to sell 5 shows year 1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you sold a show? Do you know how hard it is to get a show across the finish line? How many months it takes? Like, start small.
Yeah.
You know, start where you have some level of control, whether that is on YouTube or in, you know, the big world of streaming and networks. Like, what do you really have to build from and work off of? Laugh, Cry, Wow. I mean, we are in it for excellence. I think the only thing that I look at 5 years from now that could make me consider it to be successful is, number one, being sustainable. You know, I want to keep a roof over our heads. I want our company, everybody who works at the company, to feel like their needs are met both creatively and, you know, financially, logistically, that we're able to do that. I don't think Laugh, Cry, Wow. I'm not interested in building the biggest company in the world. I just want to put out the best content.
Yeah.
And in 5 years, if we can do that, then we can decide what we want to do. So my only big picture thing to think about in 5 years is excellence in the work that we produce and having things to say no to.
You mentioned how difficult it is to actually sell a show. And I've seen this firsthand. When I first got out of film school, I was an assistant to Penny Marshall. Yeah. And so, and even with her cachet at the time, because when I worked for her, she was still like top 5 women directors in Hollywood history because of Big and League of Their Own. But even her, like, going through her agents, going to arrange the meetings, and then all of the follow-up afterwards, it takes forever to actually sell a show. And so I'm curious, in your experience right now, what is that process of selling a show actually? How long is it? What does it entail? Like, because there are so many meetings and then follow-up meetings and then legal negotiations that could take like 18 months in my experience, from pitch to actually making the damn thing.
Yeah, it's like the worst coordinated dance, you know, that you'll ever do. And I think that there is this myth that if you're the right person, it's so easy, right? You can just walk into a room, sell it in the room, and that does happen sometimes. But I don't think you can anticipate it as the rule.
Yeah.
This is what I learned from Participant. It always comes down to 3 things.
Yeah.
Logline, deck, and sizzle. So if you're starting from 0, become really good. And I feel like anybody can do that. If you can make a good YouTube video, you can make a good sizzle reel. So that will get you in the room.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was an example of that. Like, I had never produced a television or film show, but what I had started to do really well was create excellent short form stuff. And then I could translate that into great sizzle reels. And then those sizzle reels got me in the room. Right. And I think half of the time those executives were like, who is this person? Like, why am I meeting with them? But that sizzle reel, I mean, the first one that I sold was called 16 and Recovering. And that sizzle reel made executives weep in the span of about 3.5 minutes.
Wow.
That show ultimately sold to MTV, VH1. And again, like, I had no credits, like significant credits in TV and film to my name at that point. So
right.
That's why, like, never underestimate the power of a great 3 minutes. Like, laugh, cry, wow, right? Back to the basics. You get one of those 3 emotions, you nail it, like, you will get a shot.
Yeah.
So I guess your question is, what is the process like? The process is a lot of hurry up and wait. You're sending out your materials to buyers, hoping that they're like, well, let's meet with them, even if this idea is not perfect. Or we love this idea, come in and pitch it. And you might have to pitch it through several levels of executives until you get the actual green light. And jump through several hoops to demonstrate that you have access, or that you can ultimately deliver a full show. So you might have to outline the entire show before you sell it. You might have to who knows? I mean, I feel like it's just based on the person you're talking to. So one thing I should also say is that my first job when I was at Brookings was at Guitar Center. And I had such a good manager there because he taught me that the main thing that my job was not to know every detail about all of the equipment I'm trying to sell, because I didn't know that much about it. It's just, all you have to do is transfer enthusiasm. That's it. If you're enthusiastic about it, then that will transfer. And that's your goal. It's not to need to know every aspect and have the answer to every question. So I think about that's the job. That's selling, is you have to be really enthusiastic about it. And your job is to transfer that enthusiasm to every single person that you talk to. So that they feel like this project could be the next, K-pop.
So if you could go back in time, back to Idyllwild, and give yourself, your 18-year-old self, one piece of advice, what would it be? You've already dropped some doozies, so trying to top those I can understand is a little rough.
What would I tell my Idyllwild self?
Yeah.
Sort of like that paradox of time travel. This isn't the advice I would give myself. I'm just sort of pondering the question.
Yeah.
So the first thing that came to mind was don't worry so much. I think of just don't take everything so seriously. But if I gave myself that advice, would I have then done all of the things that I did because I took it so seriously? So I don't know. I think maybe there's some glorification that we do, if only I had done X, Y, and Z differently. I would not, if I'd met myself, I wouldn't change a goddamn thing. I wouldn't tell myself anything. Just do exactly what you're doing, mistakes and all. Mess it all up. Absolutely burn the bridges that you felt like you needed to burn at the time. Because that is ultimately what gets you to a place where you could never even imagine. If I would tell myself as an Idyllwild kid at 17 that I would have an office on the lot, at 38, no fucking, I would not believe that.
And that is Season 3, Episode 14 of the Producers Lounge podcast. Thank you to my guest, Bayan Joonam, for joining us. You can find out more about him by checking out the show notes and subscribing to our YouTube channel at Greater Grander. Our intro and outro music today was Faster Does It by Kevin MacLeod. Our episode still image is from Stars' Magic City. Watch now on stars.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you can check out this week's accompanying article on greaterandgrander.com entitled 15 Free Filmmaking Apps That Elevate Your Brand's Visual Storytelling. Link in the show notes. You can stay up to date by following us on YouTube and social media at the handle Greater Grander, all one word. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever fine podcasts are found. And also, if you like what we do, share this podcast with a friend who you think will enjoy it. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions, and until then, keep producing dreams.